Hey winner, welcome to Red Hot Mindset. I am so glad you're here with me today. We have so many things to be thankful for, don't we? Thanksgiving brings about a time of reflection for many. Every day, I write down 3 gratitudes to help me see the blessings in my life no matter what my life circumstances are at the time. But at Thanksgiving, I think I am even more intentional about finding things to be grateful for. This year has been a year, and that's for sure. But we can still be grateful for so many things. Maybe you're grateful for your health, or you're grateful for more family time, or you're grateful that you were able to slow down for a time. Maybe you're more grateful for the work that you have than you were ever before. We can turn these crazy times into blessing times if we choose to see the good that can come out of it. Today's guest exudes gratitude even for the hard challenges she faced because they have made her stronger and helped her to encourage others through them. Jennifer Whynot is a wife, mother, therapist, artist, and a runner. She lives in Maine with her husband, her 2 children, and a puppy. She has been a runner for 21 years, but became more serious about it over the past 10. Running has become a place of solace, peace, meaning, motivation, coping, and a sense of accomplishment in her very busy life. From an eating disorder to caring for her special needs son to redefining her faith, Jennifer has lived through much heartache, turned into breakthrough and victory. She now thrives in the face of adversity and struggles that she's faced over her life, and she seeks to encourage others to do the same through theirs. By the end of this episode, you will know that you are not alone in your struggles, and there is hope if you hang in there and persevere through them. Are you ready to chat? I can't wait to introduce her to you today. Well, welcome, Jennifer. I'm so glad to have you on the podcast today.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be able to speak with you today, and looking forward to it.
Absolutely. I'm super excited to share your story. I just think that listeners everywhere are going to resonate with it. They are going to get a lot out of it. And just to hear your struggle victories that you've had throughout your lifetime of running, but even just your lifetime in general, I think it's going to be a really, really great talk today. But before we get started, I'd love for you just to introduce yourself a little bit, share a little bit about who you are and your family.
Okay, excellent. Well, I'm 37 years old. I am a born and raised Mainer, and I live in southern Maine with my husband and 2 children, Elijah and Grace. And I work with mental health population, substance abuse population. Typically, I work as a case manager, but in the past I've worked as a recreation therapist. So I have had a wide variety of experience helping others, and see the value of me helping myself throughout life. And so my faith has always been a really important part of my life. I'm active in the church ministry with the worship team. I am a bongo player. In my free time, I love and enjoy my running, but also I do art. And again, a lot of that is for therapeutic reasons. And I think that's about it. We live on a farm type land. We have a greenhouse, we have chickens, we have all of those things. We try to be as self-sufficient as possible.
That's so cool. And I've always wanted to visit Maine. Never been there yet. But what season would be the best time to visit? Just curious.
To be honest with you, I think late summer, early fall, just because of the foliage. The foliage is, there's nothing else that can quite express how beautiful it is. And to know that like all of it is so unique to that particular season. There's never one season that is the same. So I would say the foliage time, late summer, because you can actually enjoy it without the humidity. We're actually just starting to get into that now, where it's actually nice at night and you're not feeling miserable. that's the downside of the state during the summer, is that the humidity gets so high that it's hard to enjoy what's around us. So
Yeah, yeah. No, that's good to know. Because I'm native Minnesotan. We just moved to Colorado recently. And same thing. It's like the summer is the time where we want to enjoy it, but it's just so humid.
yeah,
And so fall's always been my favorite there too. But I can imagine Maine just being so beautiful in the fall.
it's gorgeous. I love Maine. The ocean's right there. The hiking and the mountains are right there. There's so much to do. I know a lot of people think, oh, there isn't a lot to do in Maine. No, there's tons of stuff to do if you're an outdoor person, which is one of the reasons why our family really loves it here, amongst many reasons. But
Yeah, that's so cool. We will have to visit because that is, you get the best of both worlds. You get the ocean and you get the mountains. And
mhm.
I'm a sucker for mountains and hiking. So, but I do like to see the water. So very cool. Well, let's get into your running story a little bit. Share with us a little bit about how you started running. When did you start running? Maybe share a little bit about why you decided to take it up.
Excellent. So I was actually born and raised in northern Maine. It's a farming country, and they're typically known for their potato picking, and all of that. So I was raised in that atmosphere, and I was always a very shy and quiet person, and kept to myself. Didn't really have a lot of friends, a lot of anxiety, and during my teenage years, I had a lot of struggles with depression and anxiety, and just not feeling connected to anybody in particular. Um, I found myself over time finding my identity in an eating disorder. And the way that started was very, very simple, cutting things out of my diet, counting calories, and it escalated to a point where I needed to have residential treatment for that, and also I needed to gain weight back. So I went through the process of refeeding and getting on a nutritionist plan. And I was able to be stabilized, and I returned home to my environment. And that's one of the biggest challenges in coming away from a treatment is that you go back to a situation that kind of was fostering that eating disorder. And I got to a place where I was pretty stable. So the doctor said, you can start including exercise back into your routine. And prior to that, my exercise only really consisted of walking and sit-ups and crunches and all of those things. Because my eating disorder primarily consisted of restricting, I hadn't really explored that very much. And the doctor said, well, why don't you try running? And I said, well, I've never tried that before. Maybe I'll give it a shot. So I decided to. My school did not have a track team because we are so small. So I just decided to do it for a hobby. I was about 16 years old when I started, 16, 17, and I loved it. And I kind of maintained a couple miles a day for a long period of time. And it gave me the boost that I needed within my mood, within my anxiety. I still struggled with those things, but it gave me enough of a boost in order to feel better about myself. So I actually maintained on that for a long period of time. I actually only became more serious about running over the last probably 10 years of my life. Is when that really started taking shape, and that's where my dreams started. I wouldn't necessarily say that my dreams started when I was younger. It started a little bit further down the road.
Okay. So it was more for maintenance and just to give you something to do, a hobby to kind of distract you in a way. What is it about running that you think helped you in overcoming your eating disorder and helping keep your anxiety and depression at bay? Was there something specific about running that helped you in that?
Most definitely. As I mentioned before, within my eating disorder, began to take on the identity of being a weak person, and in my mind, that gave me a sense of purpose. That gave me a focus. That gave me a sense of self, even though it wasn't necessarily a healthy sense of self. I was able to finally feel like I was good at something, so to speak, and that that was clearly unhealthy for me, as it started breaking my body down, breaking my relationships down, making it actually harder for people to connect with me. So one of the biggest desires I had was to have friends, because I had been bullied in school, and for my religious beliefs, and I didn't have any friends, and so I had kind of accepted that and said, okay, my eating disorder is my friend, when in reality it wasn't. And so when I started running, I think that was a really pivotal point in my journey, because it gave me this concept initially that I can be good at something that is healthy for me. I'm able to do something and be good at it, and for it to be healthy for me. And so it started kind of that it's kind of like it was born in my subconscious, so to speak, that can happen. And over time, I think that grew, and I was able to see how I could be a strong person through my running.
Yeah, that's powerful. What an impact that just a sport in general can have on you, or a hobby or something that can help you to find a new identity and to see that you can be strong and to see yourself in a different light. Because I think, many women struggle with either body image or some type of eating disorder in our lives, or depression or anxiety and these things, and they kind of are a captor of us and they take control, or we think that we have the control but we really don't. And I think it's really powerful to find that thing or things that can help pull us out of that, and to show us that there is a better way, because I know I have struggled in the past with those types of things, and it really can spiral us down real quickly. And I think even a part of that is, when I dealt with it, I was thinking, why am I dealing with these things? Because I have such a faith. Because if my faith were really true, God wouldn't put me through this, or I wouldn't. Did you struggle with that at all, with your faith? Like thinking, well, shouldn't be this way because I should have a faith that could keep me out of it?
Yes, most definitely. There was a lot of guilt that came along with it, and it was a kind of tug of war battle in my mind, because my faith was so strong, and but the eating disorder was so strong too. So it was literally like there was that battle going on. So there was a lot of guilt that came along with the fact that, hey, I'm struggling with this, and there's a big part of me that doesn't want to fight it. But then my faith says I need to. So I definitely challenged that aspect. I also noticed that when my faith was weaker, that's when I tended to struggle the most with some of those thoughts. And the reality is that dealing with an eating disorder, you're never recovered, you're never over it. So one of the things that I've noticed, even simultaneously with my running journey, is I notice that there will be moments when I do struggle with it, more so than not. Even in the different seasons of running, when I'm training, I have to be really mindful of, am I feeding myself appropriately? Because it could be very easy to slip back into that kind of mindset. Or if I have a lot of stress going on, sometimes I seek to control that through my eating. But I I know that I now have a lot more resources that I can reach out to regain a sense of control in my life through my running, through being healthy, through my art, through my faith in God, through my family. So I've gained a toolbox now, and running was a big piece of me starting that toolbox, so to speak. It was kind of the foundation.
Yeah, that's important, because I do think, sometimes we think, oh, I've recovered and there's no looking back. I never have to go back to that spot. But there are times in our lives that whatever our struggle was, sometimes it's going to come back in different ways, and we have to learn how to fight it off. So that's when having those tools and learning those tools is important, because then you can pull them out of that toolbox and say, no, I've overcome it before. I'm not going to let it dictate my life again. So I think that's really an important piece to know, that, because sometimes we feel guilty, like, why is it coming up again? Why am I struggling with this? It doesn't look like anyone else ever struggles with those things, right? The comparison of, they got over it and they're fine, but remembering that it's okay if it comes up, it's okay. We now know how to deal with it.
Right. Exactly.
And
So it was interesting. One of the things, as I was sitting down and reviewing some of the things that have been important in my journey, one of the things that came up to me as the strongest point in time within my running, that kind of helped shift my mindset, was the concept that I could be a strong person, and that I wanted to be a strong person instead of a weak person. And running has allowed me to desire that, if that makes any sense. Because within my eating disorder, I valued a rail thin. I valued that kind of gaunt, skeleton-like appearance in myself, and that's what I wanted when I looked in the mirror. And within running, that shifted, that changed, because I noticed how I couldn't be that person and be good at running and do the things that I love and enjoy. And so it really challenged me to say, I need to make some changes that are going to allow me to be a strong person within my running, because that's my new goal now. It isn't to be X number of pounds. It's to run a race and feel good and feel strong, have muscles. That became a moment of shifting for me. And I can't say I know exactly when that happened, but it was something that really developed, I think, over time, as I began to experience more races and really kind of step out in faith, so to speak, and do some of the things that kind of made me scared, like running a 5K or running a 10K.
That's cool. I think it's so cool that, because a lot of people probably wouldn't put faith and running together, but I think it's so cool how God can use our running and use it to empower us in other parts of our life, because it makes you stronger, and he can use it to show you that you're capable of things that you couldn't imagine. And it helps you to see how he can use you, and who knew that he could use you through running, right, to empower others. And I think that's just such a cool thing, that that faith and running can really, really connect. And yeah.
And in fact, it's interesting how along those lines, when I initially started to run marathons, I just did it kind of on a whim. I ran the Maine Marathon, and I was at a point in my life when I had just had my son. He was born 2 months premature, so we had spent a lot of time in the hospital. And that was emotionally exhausting. And I had kind of slipped back into some of my eating disorder habits. And I came up with this idea that, hey, I'm going to run a marathon. And it happened, and I felt good. There's a few hiccups. I got lost, which was...
How did you get lost? Let's talk about that for a second before you go on.
So there was relayers. There were people that were relayers, and they went down a different pathway, and I got mixed up with that group.
Oh,
And
too funny.
so I ran 5 miles off course. And
Oh my gosh. So did you end up running 31 miles then?
no, I did not. I ended up getting on the shuttle, but I ended up having to wait, so my legs killed. And when I got back out on the course, I felt like there were like boulders in my calves. The lactic acid was already starting to kind of be released, and so it was too late though, and I just said, okay, I just gotta bust through this.
Just gotta do it.
But when I finished, it gave me a sense of, wow, I cannot believe I just did that.
Mhm.
I cannot believe it. And to think that I was strong enough to do something, I never would have believed that 5 years ago, 10 years ago, to imagine that I would have that strength. And I didn't really even truly train well. I was still kind of stuck in my eating disorder patterns at that point. And so my mind began to kind of roll and say, what would happen if I trained right and I did things the right way? What could I accomplish? Because I accomplished that when I was struggling. If I really dedicated myself to a training program, what could I do? And so I contacted a trainer, got set up with a plan that was harder than heck because it really challenged my eating disorder patterns that I had developed in my life, and it required me to step out of my comfort zone and a lot of sacrifices. I remember the first day that I was on that plan, I came home from work and I just started crying in my kitchen and saying, I don't know if I can do this. And my husband looked at me in the eye and he said, well, why are you doing this? And I said, I want to go to Boston. I want to be able to say that I ran Boston one day. And he said, well, this is why you're doing this. And I said, you're right. And from that day forward, I didn't have the struggle that I had that day. Yes, struggles came up, but it wasn't like it was because my focus was on something different. It wasn't on a certain number. It wasn't on my eating disorder. It was on a goal that I had and a passion, and I knew it was mine. One of my favorite quotes is, believe in your dreams. They've been given to you for a reason. And the key part of that was that it's been given to you for a reason, not somebody else, not the person beside you, which is what the eating disorder was all about. It was about comparing. It was about saying, oh, I'm thinner than her, she's thinner than me, or whatnot. But this journey for me in my running wasn't to beat somebody else's time. It was to really be able to see that I could accomplish a goal and a dream that I had. And throughout that journey of training, one of the biggest things that I realized throughout that training season that I was in is that a lot of the work happens before you run the marathon. You can't wake up and run a marathon. You have to do the work the weeks before. And one of my favorite thoughts and quotes is, the day that you plant the seed is not the day you eat the fruit.
Right.
And I had to remind myself of that several times throughout that journey of, okay, I'm planting seeds, and I'm building on those seeds. And I could see the strength that I was gaining as a result of that.
Yeah.
Now I didn't qualify for Boston right away. That second race, I tried, and then I didn't get there, and I was like, what the heck? Like, I did it right, and I don't understand. But that fed my motivation to continue to push on, and say, you know what, this is my first time trying, really. So it's going to take some time, but that's okay, because I'm willing to put in the effort because it means so much to me.
Man, you said so much there. I mean, starting with the fact that you ended up with a why, like you knew exactly what it was that you wanted to accomplish. And the reason was because that desire was put in your heart. But knowing that helped you put in that work. And knowing also that it takes the time of growing and watering and changing and getting to the point where you can harvest what it is that you're growing. And I think, I mean, all that stuff is so powerful. Because now the idea of qualifying for Boston came right after your first marathon, right? So, what was it about the qualifying that really stirred in you? Because you ran a marathon, you're like, I just want to run a marathon. And then after that, you get this passion. So, what was it about it that really drew you in?
I think for me, Boston has always been the kind of iconic marathon that everybody always asks about. It seems like is, oh, have you run Boston? And the reality is I haven't. And but it's something that I would like to experience, just because it's kind of one of those bucket list items. I don't know necessarily where it came from, but in my mind, it was kind of the top strongest people, strongest runners to qualify. I could have raised money for a charity, but for me, it was important for me to it and to be, that's, I think a lot of that is kind of centered in that. And then also just with my personal experience and my journey, it meant a lot to me to be able to kind of challenge some of those past patterns that I've had, and really pursue something that was healthy.
Yeah. Yeah. So your second marathon was your first attempt at a BQ, and
Yeah.
you didn't hit it. And at first you were frustrated, of course. So now did you stay with this trainer? And kind of what did you learn in that second marathon that you brought to the third and fourth and so on?
So I hit some obstacles after my second marathon. I began experiencing a number of different health situations. I came down with hypothyroidism, which I was not prepared for, and eventually discovered that I had microscopic colitis as well. So I tried to keep with the same plan, but I was finding myself struggling with keeping up with it. And so, excuse me, I stayed with her for a period of time, and tried to do the best I could. I attempted a third marathon, and what I learned from that experience is if I don't think I'm ready for something, I probably am not. I was dealing with microscopic colitis at that point in time, and I attempted to run a marathon and ended up in the ER. Did not finish, and that really, I took a blow. It really discouraged me. And so I said, well, maybe I need to take a break for a while. Maybe I just need to kind of relax a little bit. And so one of the things that I learned from the third marathon was that I have to listen to my body. As much as running is about pushing through and kind of ignoring the body at certain points, it taught me that I do have points that I need to step back and listen to it. And then also it kind of helped me formulate this concept that accomplishment doesn't mean that I accomplish the goal today or tomorrow. I accomplished 19 miles. I ran 19 miles in that race when I was struggling with stomach cramps and dehydration and all of those things. So I still accomplished those 19 miles. And so I had to kind of really challenge my thinking around that. Within the fourth and fifth marathons, I just kind of did it. A lot of that was around just camaraderie. I had started to find some people that were also runners as well, and I enjoyed running marathons with other people. And I started at my gym. Everybody knew me as the crazy runner, and I started making friendships with people older people, young people, people that, have various different walks of life. I just started striking up conversations. I started cheering people on for their goals because I wanted people to experience what I was feeling in achieving my goals. And over time, I feel like I knew everybody in the gym. And I had people saying left and right, you really inspire me. I didn't feel like coming today. I didn't feel like doing it, but I've done it. I ran some races with some people that really struggle to run, but they do it because it's important to them in a lesser scale. And so I started running some smaller races with them. And I really developed some really cool friendships. And those friendships actually, whenever I do a race, they'll message me the night before, "Are you ready, champ?" And they'll cheer me on as I do for them, vice versa. So it's interesting how what can be a competitive world for a runner is actually it can be a place of family and belonging as well. So that's been kind of a neat process too. I'm always looking for ways to cheer people on, and one of the biggest pieces of even my pursuit of the marathon and qualifying for Boston was recognizing that I just can't quit. And I don't know who I'm inspiring by just not quitting. Doesn't mean that I have to be doing awesome, but if I just don't quit, I'm inspiring somebody. And I realized that over the 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th marathon that I can be an inspiration even where I'm at today, and that meant a lot to me.
Yeah, absolutely. As an excuse remover, really, because you could have had different excuses at different times for health reasons and for, still working on overcoming the disorder and all these things, and having a child who needed your attention a little bit more. All these could have been excuses to say, maybe it's not worth it. And nobody would have said anything. They would have supported you, right? But you keeping going and just not quitting is an excuse remover for so many people, because they can't just go and say, I just don't think I'm going to do it. They look at you and say, if she can do it, I need to do it, And I think that's so cool. That's an inspiration itself. And obviously probably an inspiration for your kids, because I think it's so important for us to set the example for our kids. And one of the best examples is to have something, even if it's a small goal, but have something that we're not willing to quit on, because then they don't have the excuse to quit either, And so I want to hear a little bit about your attempts. So when was it that you finally hit your BQ, and what do you think made the difference in those last couple marathons?
So there was a few years where I made attempts, and there was things that came up and just things didn't work out, or I got really close, or it was that there was a nor'easter going on and the marathon was on the coast. So it was literally torrential downpour the whole time, waves crashing over, running over your feet. It was just not a race that I was going to do a BQ on. And they miscalculated the route, and so I did 27.1, a half mile over. So there was that too. So there was a lot of hiccups along the way, and I kind of got used to the hiccups. But the last two marathons that I did, the Cheat Marathon and the Green River Marathon, within that period of time, I had kind of found myself kind of distancing from my faith. And my faith has always been a really important piece of my running, because running allows me to connect with God. It allows me to connect with things that give my life meaning and purpose, nature even around me as I'm running. And so I had kind of distanced myself from my faith, given the fact that there was a lot of stress going on in my life. My son had previously been diagnosed with autism, and I was dealing with a lot of his behaviors that were extremely challenging. I found myself kind of vulnerable, not really necessarily knowing what to do or how to deal with it. And so I still was running, but I just wasn't feeling the same connection. But I still signed up for races just because I know that they were important to me, and I just wanted to continue to go. And the period of time that I did, I did the cheap marathon and I qualified, and I couldn't believe it. But it was a short little tiny window, and I said, oh, that isn't really going to get me, that might not get me into Boston. So I was excited, but there was a part of me that was still like, I don't think this is going to be enough. And so I signed up for the New England Green River Marathon. And out of all my races that I've done, and I've done 10, it was by far the most favorite marathon that I've ever run. And it's not just because I got my BQ, it was just because of the weather was perfect. The scenery was absolutely gorgeous. And the spiritual connection that I had within several moments of that marathon was surreal. I remember even running and being brought to tears because I was listening to a song, the song that came on my queue. I usually put it on shuffle just because I've made lists, but I like to have it be spontaneous. Mm-hmm. And on my music list, the song by Toby Mac, Get Back Up. You lose your way, you get back up again. It's never too late to get back up again. And one day you're going to shine again, and maybe not now, but and so on. And the reason why that had meant so much to me is because I had felt like I had lost my way. In literally, not literally, but figuratively, I had just recently returned to church and finding myself in a situation where I needed some guidance and support from God. And it was like I felt God speaking to me and saying, you lost your way, but you get back up again. And that's been my journey. That's been my Boston journey, that I lose my way, I get back up. I lose my way, I get back up. Fall down 7 times, get up 8. And that actually happened early on in the marathon. And then it was followed further on in the marathon by, you are more than the choices that you make. You are more than, I'm trying to think of the lyrics now, the problems you create, you've been remade. So it was all kind of fitting into kind of this message that I was hearing, that God has me in his hand. He knows my heart. He knows what's important to me. In fact, he helped create that dream. He was not just going to create that dream and not fulfill it. That he was going to fulfill it. And it reminded me of a scripture, when I pass through the waters, I will be with you. I called you by name, you are mine. And I remembered that along the way in the marathon. And it was like I heard this resonating, you are mine. And it was like he was saying, look at all this beauty around me. I've created that. If I can create that, then what can I do for you if you allow me to? And within that marathon, there was kind of a release and a let go that I had never experienced before. The strength that I gained from that, I can't put it into words. It was a physical strength that I felt, but it was also a spiritual and an emotional strength that I believe allowed me to qualify strongly for Boston, and to achieve that. And I'll never forget the experience. I was crying. Just to be able to recognize that, hey, this girl, this 16-year-old girl that, was all about eating disorder and rail thin and weak and fragile and didn't talk and didn't connect with anybody else. This person could become somebody that encouraged others, that achieved her dreams, that wouldn't quit. And so it was more than just reaching the BQ. I think it was being able to recognize everything that came with it.
Yeah. Well, it's seeing your story kind of unfold and seeing the message that you have that God gave you. And I just had chills as you were talking about your marathon experience. I'm like, duh, this is why it's your favorite, because so much emotion and so much passion came into this marathon. And I think it's really neat because it's kind of that thing where I've had experiences like that too, where it's like, I give up control and I have no idea how it's going to get done. I have no idea, but I will fully surrender. And it's almost like God is waiting for us to do that because he wants us to, the dreams that he gives us, he doesn't give them to us for no reason, but he wants to use us in our weakness so that his glory can be revealed. Right. And so it's like when we pretty much admit we can't do it on our own, and we need him, that's when he comes in and he does it. So then we can't really take the credit for it. We get to give him the glory. And I think that's what's really special about this marathon, the 10th marathon. And man, and because it was, I mean, so your 9th marathon was it was a very close BQ, but then your 10th was quite a bit faster, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was about 7 minutes, 7.5 minutes. Yeah.
Which is a huge buffer and
Yeah.
something that you actually need for the Boston Marathon to actually get to go run.
Yeah. I'm hoping 2020 or 2021 that it will be enough. Just given the fact that the field or window of time is going to be a little bit larger, so that's my hope. But we'll see. We'll get there when it comes.
Yeah. You will. And honestly, I think 2021 will be your year. I think a 7-minute buffer is a really good buffer because even if, I mean, obviously they're going to probably limit the size. Who knows? We can all speculate what's going to happen. We have no idea until they actually do it.
Yeah.
But, even if they limit the size, I still think within a 5-minute, I think a 5-minute buffer is probably good. I could say that's probably safe, but I don't know. I mean, we have no idea, right? Soon enough, we will know. Because that will come within the month. We'll kind of find out what's going to happen and what they're planning for 2021. But I'm with you. I'm hopeful for 2021. I feel like it is a victory run for so many people, and that's kind of been my theme is victory run. Because for me, 2020 was supposed to be my victory run too, as I overcame like a broken ankle and still recovering and things like that. So that's kind of why it was special for me. But when it comes to being a victory run for you, what is it that you think makes it super special? Like you qualified and your dream probably changed throughout that process of those years. And it probably changed to be more special now that you have qualified. So why would 2020 have been your victory run?
It would have been my victory run because it showed me that persistence pays off, that my determination outlasted my disappointment. And I'm a quote person, as you can see. And one of my favorite quotes is that disappointment disappointment is not a place of residence. It's a place you pass through. And the fact that I was able to kind of move through that discouragement and disappointment and struggles, and still be able to accomplish something, that is really why it was a victory run. There was also so much that over those 10 marathons that I learned And there was so much that changed in me. And I was not the same person that I was when I ran the main marathon, for my first marathon. And I had become victorious not only over my eating disorder, but I had also I had overcome a lot of other struggles, even the concept of having a special needs child that created a lot of fear in me. And so I had gained some victory over that too. So um, I think that there would be several reasons why it would have been a victory run, so to speak, for me. And when I think of victory run, I think of victory lap. And a victory lap is when you're going around that last lap with a flag waving and saying, these are the things that I've overcome within my journey, and it's all represented in this because this was my ultimate goal to run Boston. So yeah.
Yeah, that's so cool. Well, and I think a lot of times we are looking for that mountaintop experience. We're looking to that end goal and we forget how much of it is actually the journey. And then when we get to that mountaintop and we look back, we realize, whoa, we are a totally different person. And that's the whole point. It's all about refining and changing and growing. And I think that's why goals are special, because in order to get to that mountaintop, you have to be willing to go through the process. You have to be willing to step into the fire, to get out of your comfort zone, to do all these things. And if you're not willing to do that, you're not going to get there. But your life isn't really going to change. And so I think that's really special. And you are going to get that victory run. Now, if 2021 happens and you're at 2021, it might be a different reason that it's a victory run. I know you have some different struggles that you're overcoming right now. Can you share a little bit about your experience just since you qualified to where you're at right now?
Most definitely. So I was supposed to run Boston 2020, and then it got rescheduled to September. And so I said, okay, that's fine. I had an injury, which is common. And I was just kind of maintaining, going along. COVID happened and all of that. And the end of June, I woke up with some symptoms, right-sided weakness, facial drooping on one side, and couldn't speak. So I immediately went to my husband, and ultimately what was going on was a stroke. And one would ask the question, you're 37 years old, you're a marathon runner, you're healthy, you eat clean, you have a clean lifestyle, your levels are all normal, no history of young adult stroke in my family. Why is this happening? So as a result of this, I found that I had a minor stroke that landed me in the hospital, and I had to go through a ton of rehabilitation to get back to where I could speak again and walk again and do things for myself. But they asked the question, why is this happening? And throughout the tests, they found that there's something called a PFO in everybody's heart, patent foramen ovale, that is open. It's a hole. It's open as a baby when you're in your mother's womb, and it's open because the mother provides certain nutrients and oxygen and blood, and it needs to be open. But when we are born, it closes, and for 75% of the population, it closes. But for 25% of the population, it doesn't. And I was one of those 25%. And I didn't know it. I had no idea. I ran 10 marathons with a hole in my heart and had no clue. But this is how the stroke happened. A clot had formed in another part of my body. And because I had that hole in my heart, it transported that clot up to my brain, which was why I had the stroke. So that kind of gives some understanding to why I had the stroke, because I'm otherwise very, very healthy. Now I'm in the process. I've mostly recovered from the stroke, and am now looking at heart surgery, which should be happening over the next month, which I found out that I was unable to participate in the virtual Boston Marathon because of it. But this is one of those moments where I have to step back and say, you know, I'm really thankful that I'm alive. I could not be alive right now. And it's also given me a sense of gratitude for the things that I have around me, and just appreciating the fact that I can be with my family. I can be home and help with the gardening. We're doing a lot of canning right now. This is giving me some time to be able to focus on that. A lot of my stroke recovery has been worked on through my painting with my just my acrylic paints that I have, and so it's been giving me an opportunity to just really focus on just what I have. There's a lot of changes going on. I even have a nice handy dandy heart monitor right now, and it's all new for me. Never would have expected this to happen, but I know that God's got me in his hands, and I know that I'm going to get back to my running. I'm able to walk right now, which allows me to get some sort of exercise, but I want to get back to running. I have to say, as soon as I can, I would like to do that. Just for right now, I'm okay with the fact that I can walk. I'm thankful for that. And I know I have upcoming heart surgery, so I need to keep that in mind within all of this as well. So
Yeah. Do you think that all the lessons that you've learned through your running journey and getting ready to qualify for Boston and qualifying has helped you with your mindset around this situation? What are some things that you've learned into this situation?
I think one of the biggest things is not to get too far ahead of myself. I had no idea that this was going to happen. I would have never even predicted that this would happen. When I tell people, they're like, "Are you kidding me?" Because that just doesn't make sense. And so not getting too far ahead of myself, appreciating what's around me, even in my marathons. My previous marathons, one of the things that I think that especially that last marathon taught me was to appreciate what was around me and what was going on. Because in the past, I was just tunnel vision, and being able to kind of notice that, hey, that's a beautiful tree right there, or that river right there is gorgeous, and to think that there's not another river like it. So just being able to appreciate the moment, so to speak, within running, which is a challenging thing to do, would be one of the biggest things. Also my faith, that's been another big piece of this, because there's a lot that I don't know right now, and or understand about what's going on with my body. I feel like it's not necessarily mine right now. But marathons, my journey through marathons have taught me that if I do rely on my faith in God, that he has formed me. He knows me better than me. He knows me better than the doctors. He can do anything. And so recognizing that in this journey now is super important, because it encourages me. It shows me that everything is going to be all right. And making sure that I fill my head with that too. With my walks right now, I am constantly listening to music that is going to uplift me. I was actually just recently, today I was listening to a song that says, "Disease has no place, sickness has no place, weariness has no place in your presence, God." And I really loved that because that showed, or that was saying that God is stronger than my current illness. And this illness feels pretty strong right now because it's impacting my energy. It's impacting so many different areas of my life. But it has no place when God is present. And so that has been a big piece of my mindset now, is making sure that I'm filling my head with those things, because if I don't, then I'm gonna go to the panic. I'm gonna go to the fear. I'm gonna go to the what ifs. And that's the same thing with running. If you allow yourself in your mind to give up or go to that place of negativity, you're not gonna finish the race. You have to run the mile you're in.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's really what I'm doing right now.
So good. So good. Running the mile that you're in. I think that sums it up so nicely, because I think it's true. We can sometimes get so blinders, like super future focused, and we forget to live in the present. And the present is what God gave us. And so I think, and I've been learning, I've been on a journey of that myself, just learning being present is so much more important than looking to the future. I mean, looking to the future is good, but dwelling there is not. We need to be where we are, right? And be in the mile that you're in, because we take it circumstance by circumstance, day by day, and that's what we have to do. And leaning into Him, and knowing that who is in control, because we are not. We definitely are not in control, and we can control what we can, which is our attitude and actions. But so many things are out of our control.
Mm-hmm.
If you were to give listeners any piece of advice, I know many probably do struggle with body image, or their own types of eating disorders, just the struggles that they're in. What advice would you give to them?
Set a goal and don't quit. And recognize that even in the struggle, struggling doesn't mean that you're failing. It means that you're trying. And there's something in that struggle that can teach you to overcome whatever part or piece of the journey that you're on. And then it doesn't have to look the way you have it in your head. That sometimes we need to change, or just kind of get a vague idea of what we want, but not necessarily predict what we think that's going to look like, or what we need to do in order to accomplish it. That was my error early on. Is I thought, I'm going to be the one that I'm just going to set a goal and I'm going to accomplish it. And when I didn't do that, it was discouraging. So I would say set a goal, a vague goal, but also recognize the things that you're learning in the moment, in that period of time. And then just recognizing who you're inspiring by not quitting. I know I mentioned that before, but the people at the gym that I connect with, they say, you're an inspiration to me. And I said, it's crazy because you inspire me, because there are many days I don't feel like doing this either. And I come because I know you're going to be here. And I end up running, X, Y, and Z because I have such great conversation, and I just been so inspired by other people. The inspiration goes both ways, even if you run a mile. And so I guess I would say to those that are kind of having this concept or dream of doing something like this, is recognizing that the segments of improvement that you make are inspiring people. You don't have to arrive at a marathon in order to inspire people.
I love it. That's awesome. And I think another thing that I think is really cool is that you don't put your eggs all in one basket. Like, your passion isn't just running, and you realize that there's more to life, and you have other passions, and one of those passions is painting. And I just think that's so neat, and that you've been able to use it, right, to just kind of offset your emotions or whatever is going on.
Especially right now with my stroke recovery. I remember my speech therapist looking at me and saying, I usually don't say this, but the best thing that you can do to regain some of that memory, concentration, focus, even fine motor skills is you need to do your painting. So that's one of the things that I've been doing right now, and it really has helped me immensely to be able to regain my strength again and recognize that I have strength and I'm good at those things. And I can't run right now. It gives me another healthy outlet that allows me to feel accomplished. So.
Yeah, that's so cool. I think that's so important for us to have a couple different places to go, especially because we never know how long we have, especially for like running, it could be taken away from us in an instant, like
That's
you
right.
learned this summer.
Yeah.
And so having that something other than, or maybe it is like family and just whatever it is, like not holding dear to one thing, but being willing to have other outlets. And I'm going to link in the show notes, I'm going to link your paintings so that listeners can go look at it. I think that's so cool. If listeners want to follow along on your journey, where can they find you?
So I am available on Facebook, and I have an Instagram page as well. So.
Okay, awesome. And I will link those in the show notes so they're easy to find. Jennifer, this has been super fun. I'm so thankful that you are willing to be vulnerable on here and share your story. I know it's not always easy to share our stories, but I just think it's such a blessing because other people, and this is why I love struggle victory stories, is because it shows others that they're not alone. Like they're not just the only ones struggling. And if we keep going, like you said in that quote, where it's not just don't stay there, let's keep moving, we will get through it and have the victory. And I think that's really special. So thank you so much for being a part of this show today.
Well, thank you for having me. It was a pleasure to speak with you today.
Yes. And hopefully I will see you at 2021 Boston.
Yes, that's the goal. Yes. Thank you so much.
Holy smokes. What an interview. I really hope that you got a lot out of today. Jennifer just bared her soul with us, shared her story, and it is going to have such a ripple effect in so many lives. All the struggle victory stories that she has and that she's continuing to have as she's embracing the stroke that she had and recovering from that and learning how to deal with what has happened, and man, just the impact that she will have. So as I said in the interview, I'm going to link her paintings so you can go take a look at that other outlet. Remember, it's so important for us to have different outlets and different places and hobbies and interests or whatever it is, because there are going to be times in our lives when our passion may be taken away. And when we have another outlet that we can focus on, it will help us in that recovery or in that time to be able to have something to look forward to have something to cope and to just bring hope in our lives. And I'm also going to link her GoFundMe page. A friend set this up to help aid in the medical costs and the different costs that have accumulated as she has had to be out of work and as her husband has had to help with the kids and all the things that come with these big surgeries. And so if you are feeling led to give, I'll have that link in the show notes for you, and I know it'll be much appreciated. As you are sitting down to Thanksgiving dinner this week, as you are just with your family and with your friends, I want you to make sure that you take a minute to reflect on all the goodness that God has for you and all the goodness that has come. I know that this year has been a crazy year for all of us. 2020 will be a year we'll never forget, but take that time to find the small blessings, to find the things that you can be grateful for in this year, and let's share them together. I would love for you to hop into the group, the Red Hat Winners community on Facebook, and share a gratitude that you have. Share something that you got out of this podcast. I would love, love, love to hear anything that clicked, something that resonated with you as you heard Jennifer's story, because I know something did. Her story is so powerful. I know it's going to have an impact. I hope that you felt blessed today, and I will see you again soon. Dream huge, and remember, you are a winner. Just run your race. I believe in you.